Hey guys, Steve here. Now, I just received a pretty awesome question on Instagram today by someone, and they asked me, Steve, I've never graded a card before, and what are the top four things that grading companies look for? Now, I don't work for a grading company, but I've graded roughly 20,000 cards. I have a general idea of what they look for. So now I have some cards to the side here, and I'm going to start with this one. And this card's obviously damaged, so we can see it, but this is what this stuff looks like. I'm going to say the most important thing. We'll just go with PSA since it is the most important. Other companies, CGC, BGS, they grade a little bit different, but I'm going to go with PSA as that's pretty much the biggest one. Now, CGC is a little bit more lenient in some areas and way harsher in other areas, and BGS is the same. So I'm just going to go with PSA because a lot of the cards you see me selling are PSA, so that's the one I'm just going to be the most familiar with at the moment. Now, number one is surface. Surface is basically, if you see the light of this card, everything that my finger is touching. Pretty much the surface of the card, the front and the full back. I'm going to make this pretty easy to understand so I don't leave out any key details. Now, the surface involves anything like tiny hollow scratches all the way to like a bigger scratch, which can be seen as an indent, which makes a permanent mark on the card. And pretty much that. I mean, dirt, grime, anything. And I'm sure this card is like very dirty all over. You can just see just how bad it is. Got a crease here. Obviously, this part's coming up. The surface is the most important. I think you can have cards that have edgeware all the way through. They can grade a 5. You have a card edgeware all the way through with a surface dent, it grades a 5. You have cards no edgeware and it has a surface dent, it can get a 5 if it's bad enough. The surface is like the absolute most important out of anything, especially when it comes to getting the higher grades like the 8, 9, 10. You'll see very, very rarely they'll ever have any major surface issues. They might have light surface issues on an 8. You'll see a little bit of scratching sometimes. You'll see maybe like 1 or 2 scratches on a 9. Very, very unlikely. You shouldn't get 9s that are just like all scratched up deep enough to see like the silvering, the hollow part underneath. Like you should never see that. You should never see little things like that. So I'm going to show you some examples after this. The next one that is the most important is the edges. Now that's pretty much anything that's not on the corner of the card. So you're going to look up like basically from where my finger is here. I'll do it like that, where the bottom of my thumb is, where my nail is, all the way up to around this. Not really in line with this box, just a little bit lower. Anything where like the corner's not basically ending. So wherever the corner ends and when it rounds, that's a corner, and then that's obviously this is an edge until the next corner. Edges is the second thing. Edgeware is very common. It's common amongst all trading cards, especially the older you get. If someone didn't put it in a sleeve right away as soon as they got it, the card moves around in a box, it gets hit by the sides. You put it in a folder without a sleeve. Every time you pull it out, if you pull it out, even when you put cards into sleeves, so you might notice some people, they grind the card up against the edges like this. And you know, that can actually cause edgeware, especially on cards where like the edges are absolutely pristine. These corners of sleeves, especially if you get a new one out of the pack, they're very, very sharp. And I'm sure if I did this for the longest time on like a newer card, you would see damage and it would be very, very, very bad. So it can happen. Little things like that can turn your card from a 10 to a 9. So the top edge, left, bottom, and right edge are the second most important things when it comes to grading. Third one. Now the third one is kind of hard. The third, fourth are very depending on just how good condition the card is. If everything's perfect, the fourth one obviously becomes the third most, but we'll get to that. Third most one is the edges. Now, I don't really have a card that has a little bit better edges here. Maybe this one. You can see the edges. Try and get a good zoom on it. Yeah, there we go. See how there's very, very light edgeware. That's very common on cards that are 25 years ago. When they cut them, a lot of this edgeware, this is edgeware, but a lot of the times on some cards, especially English old back, just from the way they cut the corners, you will get edgeware by default. And it is unavoidable. So sometimes you might get a little dot like this. Now, not really on these old Japanese cards, but on the old English cards, you get a little dot like this. And you can get a 10 still. Because PSA understands that, hey, this card was cut like this. There was never any chance for it to even have a chance of survival. This is how this card is. it came out of the cutters like this, we will give you a chance to get a 10 on some series, not all of them, but some series. So please keep that in mind. If you have 1 or 2 dots and your card is nice, it's rare, it's an expensive card, it's like a first edition holo, it's something that you like, don't let that sway you from grading it and thinking, oh, I have no chance to get a 10, because PSA does understand that those little dots right there, just equivalent to that, do come from the cutting machines. Now, significant edgeware, you'll get a dot, because like, what do I have? Maybe I have a lot of these older cards that are Japanese, they get lots of front edgeware all across the front. Some people don't really look at this too much, but let's see if we can get a nice focus zoom on that. Oh yeah, that's good. Can I zoom in? Oh, that's good. You can see just how frayed that edge is. Now, that is obviously from Playwear, and there's like this card not being, this card's not pack fresh, obviously, but you can see there, that is not very good. PSA, when they look at your card, they get loops. They're all the way in here. If they want to determine your card's gem mint and it's an expensive card, there's no doubt in my mind they're getting a loop to determine just how clean these corners are. So, sorry, I'm like shaking here. I don't know why I'm shaking, but this is just one of those things where you've got to make sure all these edges are nice and crispy if you want to get a chance to get in those 10. Sometimes you can have 1 dot like there, or maybe down the bottom left you might have 1 tiny dot here or there. You can still get a 10. They still allow for flaws, but that is the third most important thing. That's edges. So we had surface, number 1. Edges, number 2. Corners, number 3. Last but not least, centering. Now this card, I can't really show you. I'm going to show you some examples of centering and how it affects the grade. This card here, I've checked all over this card. It has no hidden dents. This card is completely pack fresh, fully mint. This might have 1 tiny little dot at the top there. There's no way that stops it from a chance of getting a 10. This card is off-centered. You can obviously see on the right-hand border over here, it is very thin. And I'm not talking about the inner right, I'm talking about the outer right border, kind of just where my tip of my finger. Oh, look at this little, is that blood or is that my dinner? It's probably my dinner on the finger of that one. I had pizza for dinner. So yeah, just in that big, thick silver border, and then you got a black border, and then you got the little silver. And then we go to this side, and you can see the difference. You see this big outer silver border. That's how you determine the centering. The easiest way to do it on these full art cards. See how small that is on that side and how big it is on that side. We check the top, it's the same thing. Don't look at this inner silver. You don't look at the inner silver border. You only look at the outer silver border. The inner silver border will never change. That is a fixed thing, and that should never be bigger or smaller unless your card is extremely off-centered. And I want you to show that to me. You see at the bottom here, I could pull something up just to show you the difference, but I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to get a little tool, because you obviously can see this bottom border is quite small, and this top border is quite thick. This left side border is quite thick. Right side border is quite small. Now, on these cards, sometimes on the full arts, definitely on the bottom of them, I don't know if this is true. This is just me looking at these cards for millions and millions of times. I feel like the bottom of the cards sometimes are just always smaller than the top of the card. I don't know why. I think on full art trainers, they're usually always smaller. I think that's the way they actually cut them. I might be wrong, but definitely left to right centering on this card is the reason why I got an 8. Now, like I said, the centering might be more of a reason. So if this card was well centered and it had a little bit of dots here, dot there, maybe 1 edge or 2 edgewares, this would get a 9. So even if the card was in worse condition, it would have got a higher grade because the centering isn't so bad. Does that make sense? So that's where you can kind of get skewed a little bit. Like a card in worse centering will get a lower grade than a card that is in worse condition. I hope that can be understood, because I can't really explain it any better than that. Now I'll just show some examples of dents just killing your cards. I have this one, I showed this the other day. Right there, big fat dent. Now obviously these two cards, years apart, 2001 versus 2015. All this card has is this dent here. This card is completely mint. It's a 6. PSA will give that a 6. That's a very light dent. That's very normal. Maybe a 7 if he's having a good day. This card's kind of destroyed. I mean, it's got like scratches everywhere. It's got a bit of edge wear. I saw it had some little gunk up top here or something. It's not pretty. I mean, this card has a lot of issues with it that aren't just a part of it's got another dent down here, its own little problems. And I think in the middle here, you can probably see it right above, let me get this light out of the way, right above where it says game. So look above the A, you can see it right there, right at the tip of my finger. It's kind of hard if you don't know what you're looking for. I'm going to zoom in. Oh my god, what is this focus doing? Zoom in, you can see how the surface is being raised. Now we turn this over and we can see just like that, there's a dent right on top of this one Japanese character here. Refocus right there, that's a dent. That's going to put this card to a 6. Maybe if this didn't have that dent, probably wouldn't be a 6, but it still has the edge wear, it's got dirt all over it, you know. Card's not pretty, it has another little bend on the bottom. 6 is perfectly fine, it's an old card, it's a Shining Charizard. It's not proven, I feel like they look at these cards more. I don't blame them, they're much more expensive, they don't want to make mistakes, they don't want to pay out for guarantees, they don't want unhappy customers. So I hope this helps you. Please just let me know in the comments if it's helped you. Any other things you want me to answer, I'll just give you any of my knowledge. Hopefully I can put thousands and thousands of videos out there just for helping people just try and like increase the amount of value they can get out of their collections and get more out of life and get more out of their collection. So I pull these aside. I'll just do this really quick. So this card here, PSA 9, 1 dot edge wear, 2 dots edge wear, another dot of edge wear. These came out of the same seal. Oh, sorry, these are out of a sealed pack that's pretty similar, but you know, look at this. This is a PSA 10. PSA 10. We have 1 dot of edge wear. These are graded at the same time. I think these are simultaneous. Or whatever it is. One cert after another. I don't know the word for it right now. But it's got the same little edge dot there. Same little edge dot, you know. This is the PSA 9. This is a PSA 10. Maybe that's more edge wear. Maybe it's not. But this one has a dot here. This one has a dot there. This one has no dot on the top left. And this one does have edge on the top left. But what are we looking for? The centering killed me. Now you'll see here. This right hand side, this left hand side is way different. I can tell because obviously I've been doing this for a while. And sometimes sometimes you're going to be worried that the card, see if I push this card this way. This card looks a lot better because a lot of this yellow border on the right here is being covered by the, you know, the PSA plastic. But when you try to do this, try to like shake the card. Sometimes the card will move a little bit to give you a little bit of a boost. And top to bottom doesn't seem too bad. So we're going to measure these bottoms. How do they look? You know, this is not perfect. I wouldn't really try to do it this way because I would get a little bit of a measurement tool, maybe like use a millimeter ruler or something so you can get an idea. But we can probably see by this, the bottom border, I mean, even like this, we can easily see that the bottom of this card is way thicker. Not way thicker, but you can see like the green lines come out further. These are like right on top of each other. Push the cards like that. You can, yeah, I can definitely tell. I don't know if you can tell, but I can definitely tell by stacking these on top of each other that it's just way more pushed out. And now this could mean that this is more on one side, but you know, I wouldn't normally do it like this, but I'm trying to show it in a way. If I had a video, if I took pictures of these cards, I'd probably be able to do it. But you know, this one at the top here, it is a 10. It isn't better centering. It's millimeters, or not even that. It's like micro millimeters difference, but I can tell that this is like a little bit more shifted to the left, and this one's a little bit more perfect. This one's not perfect centering. I'd probably put this at like 55, 45, 56, 44. This one I'd put definitely below 60, 40, maybe even right on 60, 40. So that's PSA's parameters for a 10, 60, 40, and then above that, obviously. So I hope this helps. 13-minute video on 4 different very small things, but they're very important. I hope you get high grades. Thanks for watching.